Okay, well,
Okay. 7 o'clock, and I'd like to make a motion to open the meeting. Need a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
As far as the notice goes, all right, the notice that was posted in the papers, notice is hereby given that the Board of Zoning Appeals of the Village of Tuxedo Park will hold a public viewing of the exterior lights on the Tuxedo Club padel courts between June 15th, 2025 and June 21st, 2025, between the hours of 8:15 and 9:15 p.m. The Zoning Board of Appeals will continue to review the Tuxedo Club application for exterior lights at the padel courts at the next regularly scheduled meeting on July 2nd at 7 p.m. at the Village Hall, Village of Tuxedo Park, 80 Laurel Road, Tuxedo Park, New York. If you wish to attend the meeting remotely, Zoom video conference instructions can be obtained on the Village Park website or by mailing John Ledwick. Now, as far as I'd like to add to the notice, as of 1 o'clock this afternoon, we received a letter from the Tuxedo Club. The letter was addressed to John Ledwith, reference to the padel courts. Good afternoon. After internal club dialogue, we have decided to withdraw our application for the lighting variance, but still pursue the fence height variance. The Tuxedo Club is withdrawing the request for a lighting variance for the padel courts. The club will continue to pursue a variance for the padel light fence height. The Tuxedo Club will remove the lights and the arms from the padel courts within 30 days or earlier if possible. And this came from Randy St. John. Proof of mailings.
yes, 29 were sent, 22 were signed for, and 3 of them came back where the forwarding orders apparently had expired.
And the applicant presents. Who's going to present for the applicant? Okay. Okay.
All right. All right. So I'm Jeff Greenbaum. We haven't met. We've met, but we haven't.
We
met.
have.
So I'm Jeff Greenbaum. I'm a resident of the park. I'm a member of the rackets committee at the club. I am, for what it's worth, I'm a lawyer, but I'm not a participant lawyer. I'm not representing the club as a lawyer. I'm an entertainment lawyer, so I don't know anything about what you guys do, but I'm here to speak on behalf of the club and to provide whatever information we can and to answer questions that you have. So I think it's important to note that this is a follow-up meeting that we met before. We had a great, I thought, collaborative, interesting meeting last time where lots of views were expressed. And thank you for meeting with us again about this. I realize the membership of the BZA has changed a little bit since our last meeting, so I thought it was worth at least mentioning a few of the things that we talked about before. You know, I think, we talked about the importance of the club to the park. We talked about how having a thriving club was essential to both the character of the park and that the park gets tremendous value from having a successful club. We talked about the fact that the club itself, one of the most special things about the club is the tennis program at the club. And it's not just about Tim. It's not just about Tim, but it is about the fact that it's a unique program and that, you really can't find what this club offers anywhere. That if you want the mix of racket sports, if you want to go and do all of the things that you do, you really have to come here. And so it's a huge selling proposition for the club, and it's a huge driver of people coming to the club and coming to the park. I'm an example of that. Tangentially, one of the things that we know as we see people applying for membership at the club is their interest in participating in a variety of racket sports. And, given that padel is one of the fastest growing racket sports in the world, I think that Tim realized very early on that there was just no way we could continue to do what we do and be the leader that we are without having padel courts as part of the offerings that the tennis program has. We also talked about the popularity of padel at the club and how it really has just taken off as one of the main activities that the club offers here. We also talked about all the letters of support that you received from people who are really excited about having developed the club. Since that time, I think you've heard more support for people, from people about the padel courts at the club. And as I understand it, many people who are in, vicinity of the courts have expressed support, not only for the courts, but having lighting at the courts. We also talked very openly about some of the concerns that people raised. And I think that led us to realize that we were not ready to have a decision and that we needed to come back and we needed to look into these issues further. And I think a lot has happened since then. I think the first thing we did was we had lighting tests. We brought some initial lights out that were clearly not right. We brought a second set of lights out that we thought really met those concerns. But we also conducted a sound test. And, we measured, what the sound was of the sort of the tennis courts versus the padel courts. And the sound test we conducted, showed that there really wasn't any meaningful difference between having padel courts and tennis courts at the club. We thought we were in a very good place about this, and we thought we had addressed the concerns that were expressed. But, in the lead up to this meeting, it became absolutely clear that there were still serious concerns about the padel courts and in particular about the lighting at the club and having padel played at night, even though, the variance itself that was being requested for the lighting was for just a few hours at night in the off season. So, as you heard from Randy, I think we've heard those concerns and, we took them seriously and we've withdrawn that application. And I think that is important. And it is something that, we feel good about. We're disappointed in not being able to do it, but we recognize that was the right thing to do. So our application tonight is only about a variance as it relates to the height of the fence. So just to review where we are in terms of the process, after receiving the go-ahead from the town, lawn tennis court 4 was removed and 2 padel courts were built there. Regarding the location that we had chosen for the padel courts, they were placed in the middle of the tennis facility, surrounded by the pool, the parking lot, and the tennis house. When you view the padel courts from the lake, they're below ground level because the lake is higher than where the courts are. And that location was chosen was intentional, right? And we placed the courts in a place that was going to minimize impact on people surrounding the club. I think it's also important, just by way of context, the padel courts themselves don't increase the footprint of either the club or the tennis facility. In fact, the padel courts take up less space than the one lawn tennis court, about almost 3,000 square feet less. So the variance that we're requesting is it relates to the height of the ends of the padel courts. As you know, the village rules prohibit fences that are larger than 10 feet high, and our request here is pretty limited. The ends of the padel courts are a little less than 13 feet high. So we need a variance to allow us to have the ends of the court be about 3 feet higher than is permitted by the village rules. So to be clear, most of the sides of the padel courts are actually lower than the 10 feet required permitted by the code and lower than the prior fences that were here. So as a result of that, the total fence that is being used right now in the courts is a lot less than was used before, and the footprint of the courts is also a lot less than it's used before. So, what we're doing in terms of adding these padel courts is using considerably less overall fence and considerably less floor space essentially than was before. So, okay, so what are the factors? As you know, there are 5 factors that are considered with an area variance. The first is, will an undesirable change be produced in the character of the neighborhood? We don't believe that adding an additional 3 feet of fence on either side of the courts will produce any undesirable change. First, the padel courts are in the middle of an existing tennis facility. They're surrounded by other courts, by a pool, by the tennis house, and by the parking lot. And from the lake, as I said, they're below ground level. And as I've also explained, the fences are on the whole less fenced than before, and there's less section than is before. When we look at it and you take a step back and you look at it, it is in character with the sort of the tennis facility as a whole, and the overall structure is smaller than was there before. So our view is that not only is the additional height not really even noticeable, but that the addition of the padel courts using less fencing and less square footage actually produces a desirable change in the neighborhood. 2, can the benefits sought be achieved by some other method? There's really no other feasible method for us to achieve the padel courts here, other than the courts that they are. The reason for that is the padel courts, we don't decide on the size of the fencing or the court itself. It's a regulation padel court, and that is just the regulation dimensions of the court itself. So from that perspective, there's really nothing else we can do other than use the courts as they're sort of determined by regulation size. Three, is the requested variance substantial? We believe that the variance that we are requesting is very minor. As I mentioned, fences lowered for most part than they were before. Floor space that we're using is much less than before. Although we are requesting a variance because of the ends of the court, overall, we're creating something that has a lot less impact. So we think that, especially in the context of that it's in the middle of a large tennis facility, it really makes that change even less substantial. 4, will the change have an adverse effect on the neighborhood? We don't believe that the change will have an adverse impact. Again, overall, the impact of the courts is smaller. And given that it's in the middle of a tennis facility, we don't think that it's really going to have any kind of meaningful impact. But I think there's an important thing here. And I think the important thing here is we've had the benefit of living in these courts now for quite some time, right? And one of the things that we have seen is that we've had a tremendous positive response to the courts, not only from the club as a whole, but from people surrounding and living near the courts themselves. And so, what we have learned is that, not only do people feel very positively about how they look and about the role they play at the club, but that people also feel that it has really improved both the club and the area where they are. And then finally, was the difficulty self-created? These are just standard size padel courts. That's how they're built. And if we're going to offer padel at the club, which we feel we should and have to, these are the dimensions of the court that would be used. But significantly, and again, I've said this before and I'll say it again, we really feel like we were very thoughtful in terms of the placement of the padel courts. I mean, we really couldn't have put them at the tennis facility in a place that was less, in a way that could potentially have any impact on people. So the variance we're requesting here is permission to have the regulation size padel courts, which exceed the height limits at the end by 3 feet. And to be clear, there's no really choice we have about the design or the height. This is how they're built, and we're hoping you will approve the variance and the specific fence itself that's required. I would also just like, as I wrap up, and again, I'm no land use attorney, but I did want to say a few words about the letter that we got yesterday, I think, or the day before, from the attorney from some of the folks opposing the variance. First, we are not requesting a use variance here. We're requesting an area variance. So the statutory factors that are in the letter really aren't applicable to the application today. Second, the letter is really entirely focused on the lighting, and all of the argument in the letter is really focused on sort of the impacts of the lighting. And we heard that, we listened to it, and we've withdrawn the request for the lighting. But I think what's significant about the letter is there isn't really any meaningful objection in the letter to the fence itself and the height of the fence itself. And the final thing is that I think that the letter does cite some internet sources for the sound associated with the padel courts. And I think that it's great to cite those internet sources, but I think we actually have our own experience that we can live with here, which is it's in the community, people have experienced it, we've had an extraordinarily positive response to it, and our sound tests, confirm that there really isn't any kind of meaningful impact. So that's all I have to say. I don't know if you have questions for me, otherwise I'm happy to sit and answer questions or respond as appropriate.
Yeah, didn't he make a mistake about the height?
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as the height goes, it's, the height actually is on a side yard is only 6 feet. But obviously a tennis court, the height is 10 feet for the tennis court, and these fences have been in place for a long time. So the variance really is a variance to from 6 feet, not 10 feet.
Thanks, Jake.
Thank you for filling us in. I am the new person on the board that hasn't heard this at all. One question was that it is 6 feet that you're asking for. That's important to then compare the degree of the ask that you all are making. The other is, and I'm trying to piece together the timeline here. And I don't want to be under any false understanding, because the false understanding I have is a pretty significant one. You sought approval from the town before you installed the tennis court, the padel court?
From the village.
From the village? Okay, you said town.
Yeah.
Village makes more sense. How was that presented to the village? And were they very clear on what you were asking for? This is a leading question, attorney. You're probably seeing that one coming. My impression is that this was presented as like for like, and I want to understand clearly what you meant by that.
I mean, look, my understanding, and again, I don't want to speak for John, because obviously he's here.
And
You know,
he said that to me, so.
right, you know, so I think that, there was representatives from the club who met with John, and they showed him the plans, and they talked about the padel courts, and they looked at a schematic of what this was gonna look like, and they got the go ahead to move forward. I mean, I think, and again, don't want to talk to John, because obviously, I have completely, we all trust John, I think that John did not know that the height of the courts were gonna require a variance. And I think he also understood that if we were gonna get lights, they would need to be approved. So I think that, I think there's no suggestion here that John said that you could have a fence that was higher than was permitted. I think that we know that we need a variance for that. But I think that the view at the time and the view that, we got communicated, look, we all in this village don't do anything without going to John first. And so.
That's not true, but
Well,
okay.
well,
In a perfect world, it
in a
would be.
perfect world, right, so, I think that the message that we got from John, was that this was something that we could put in, and, we got the approval to do so, and, obviously, if he had told us we couldn't, we would have taken whatever action he had told us to do.
But like for like is not a chain link fence, or are you associating like for like, meaning that it would look like the tennis court that was adjacent to it?
I think that, I think that the club came to the village with a non-legal request. The request was, hey, we want to take you out number 4 and put in 2 padel courts. And I think that, and again, I don't want to speak for John, but I think that John looked at it and said, you're putting in courts in replace of courts, that's like for like, there are no other approvals that are needed.
You said it's like for like. He did not say that.
All I said was that we went to the village and it got approved.
Yeah, I'm still left with the impression that this was misleading. This was a very not very careful presentation of an application to the building inspector.
Look, I don't want to pretend John's not here, but I feel like, this is somebody everybody knows, and we have these conversations about lots of different things and lots of different things in the village all the time, and I think we have these communications and we talk and we say, can we take down these trees? And he says, no, you can't. And we say, we don't take down the trees. And so I think that, when the club met with John, I think they presented what they thought was they needed to present. And I think it was clear that we were putting in padel courts. We didn't say we were putting in a tennis court. We said we were putting in padel courts. Those are a specific thing. Those are designed a specific way. I mean, there's no way that, I don't know what like for like means. We can ask the real estate lawyer what that means, but I think from the club's perspective, we came to the village and said, look, we want to put in 2 padel courts in place of a tennis court. And John said, that's okay, you can move forward.
It's not like they didn't come to the village. They came to the village. They asked permission to put the court.
They went to the architectural review board first.
No,
I think
Yeah,
there was
they
a
did.
question.
No,
I think
they
there was a
did.
question about whether we needed to go to the bar. And there was a discussion about that, and there was a back and forth, and a judgment was made that we did not need to go to the bar for the stuff that was being planned.
Who
at the
made
time.
that judgment?
Well, John, could you kindly speak to this? And
Yeah, the Tuxedo Club went before the bar on July 25th. And it is reasonable and customary. I ask applicants to go to the bar to see if there's any other feedback that they should have before they go to the BZA.
Wasn't it?
wait, please, Dolores,
I'm
please,
sorry.
only in time, please.
we have not opened the meeting to the public.
Okay, sorry.
Hey, John.
Yes. So July 25th, the Tuxedo Club went to the BAR, received feedback with the understanding they needed variances and would pursue them if they wanted to.
And I heard that some of the feedback from the architectural review board was generally they thought it was an appalling building structure. They hated it. I hope that was transmitted to somebody on your committee.
I think they were talking about the lights.
No,
No, but
they were talking about the building too. I
So
spoke.
what it looked like, and would have been the responsible way to present this, is to explain something that's a new sport, a new recreation being added into this residential community, despite the club being here, would be to have described that there are plexiglass walls as part of this. And it would have been prudent for it to be managing the expectation right from the get-go and having that understanding. Because despite thinking, hey, the building inspector's not calling me out that I need a variance, doesn't mean that you're home free and you don't need a variance. And it doesn't mean that if you say like for like, eventually the truth will out and we can conclude right here and now that it's not like for like. It's just a shame that that was the respect for how the building inspector reviews these and the respect for the process. I just find it a little bit hard to swallow that this was simply going along our way and everybody thought this was going to be acceptable.
I mean, look, again, unfortunately, I was not there, so I only am reporting on what I've learned during the process.
Uh-huh.
But I will say, from my own experience, right, us as residents of the park and the club as a resident of the park as it is an experts in these areas, right? That's what we go to John for.
Well, that's what the code that's accessible to everyone is for as well.
Right, but I'm saying that, we did what we were supposed to do in this situation, which was we went to John
Uh-huh.
and said, what do we need to do here? And he told us to move forward. And look, I think that you may, hindsight being 2020, maybe we could have done something different. Maybe John could have done something different, but I don't think it's about finger pointing at this point. I think that, we did as the club what we were supposed to do, which is we went to the village and we said, hey, do we need to do anything here? And the village gave us the okay to move forward.
I don't think,
Go
if I
ahead.
may, I don't think John had a clue what Padel was. Also, the amount of noise it makes. I mean, I'm sure he never would have let you go ahead if he had
But we-
any idea.
But we need to focus on what's in front of us right now. Okay,
Well,
we
no,
really-
I think we need to think about the background respectfully.
uh,
The
right.
background of all of this, how this came about.
But that really is not a zoning issue at this point.
I think that's how we make our decisions.
Can I just interject something? So the building inspector issued a building permit, correct? No?
No, it was a like for like replacement.
Okay, but that was your determination at the time?
Yes,
And no one challenged that at the time?
correct.
That was what Tim Chisholm said in his letter. This is like for like.
I don't think it would be inaccurate to say, given the conversations I've had and what I hear here, is that he made the presumption that what they were saying was indeed a fact. He trusted. And he shouldn't have perhaps, but he thought it was like for like. It's clearly not.
Did you review plans?
Yes,
Did you understand there was a plexiglass wall? Because it's tricky to find it in the submission, I must say. Was it pointed out to you that it wasn't chain link fence all around?
yes, I understood it was not chain link fence all around. But I'd never measured the impact of the noise on
Mhm.
on a solid wall compared to a regular tennis court.
Yeah. So here we are with a village that's not all thrilled to have it. Lots of residents are very unhappy about having it, and I think they've already expressed their opinion about that here. So
Yes,
if
but,
we're,
but many residents have also expressed the opinion that they're very happy about it too, so.
right, but this isn't a referendum. This isn't a referendum. But if we're going to paint the picture here of what is going on here for the record and for the notes, as you presented it, everyone is happy, or so many people are happy, but I have to acknowledge that there are a fair amount of people that are not happy here. And that as a board member, I'm taking that into account as well. It's clearly not a referendum. It's us as a board voting of whether we think and making our own evaluations of what these 5 balancing factors are. on the wall. But I also have to add that the wall is just by its quality is indeed a noise issue. It factors in that the kind of wall that it is brings up the noise issue. That we're not going to talk about the lighting, but I think we need to talk about the noise because of the kind of wall it is that we would be approving here tonight.
I'm not sure that there's anything except for nuisance in the code that requires this as a variance issue.
So if neighbors that are constantly barraged and annoyed by the noise, their only solution is to call the police and complain about the noise every time it's too much noise for them? Is that what you're saying? Is that acceptable here as a process?
There are noise regulations.
There are
They would have
regulations.
to exceed the noise regulations,
Right.
and that would be not a position for this board to look into.
But we don't even know if they do or they don't exceed the regulations that are.
Well, you've asked for
Clearly
sound
outlined.
study. You can
Yes.
do a sound study or ask for your own sound study, but I'm just noting that chairman, I think, is correct in that there are noise regulations unless you can prove that every single time they use that court, they're exceeding the noise regulations in the code, which this board can't vary anyway. So it's just not an issue. For the other issues may be fine, the character of the neighborhood, the impact, et cetera. But you can't get a noise variance.
The character of the recreation that this is.
Well, look, that's
The
up to-
character of the wall. The character of if the wall creates noise and that's a factor of the wall.
That's
I
a
don't
factor
think,
of your deliberations if you want it to be, but there's no such thing as a noise variance. I'm just pointing that out.
but it's a factor of the deliberations.
The noise is annoying.
That certainly
so-
can
really
be up
is.
to you guys, yes.
Yeah.
And it
So-
is. And the sound, again, for the record, Desiree, the sound testing was another, I find, very disrespectful for the process. You didn't use a professional. Someone walked around with a Home Depot like decimeter.
And you had suggested to Jake that they should hire.
I suggested to
an
the entire
acoustician.
board here that they get an acoustician. And it's not without precedent here that it's done. I was on the BAR some years ago when the club was putting in its new kitchen. Compressors were near the Stegman residence. They complained. We sat here with an acoustician who very clearly educated the board enough to be able to make a decent determination. They also presented mitigating factors and processes that could be done, which was very amicable and a way to work with instead of against, right?
I would say, first of all, I was here at the last meeting and there was no specific direction about the type of research or study we should present. So
Well, there was one between
There-
meetings that could have easily been acknowledged and pursued, and it wasn't.
I'm not aware of that, but if there was, certainly if there was some written direction and.
There
we
were,
got
if
it-
you look at the minutes to the meeting of September 4th, there was no, this discussion of sound come up, but there was no direction from this board to do sound study. I just read the minutes.
No, but you was. as
We
I
discussed
say,
sound, but we didn't recommend to do a sound study.
I've got correspondence that says that the board, the
Right, but
club
not
has
from
been
this minute.
proposed and they don't want to spend the money on an acoustician. I even went out of the way and said, hey, acoustician, I know. It's not necessarily going to be you, but can you outline in a proposal, give an idea of the cost of this? This is important. Professional feedback is important. And also not just for mitigating, but also to set, here's how much noise is coming off of the Padel court. And if there's more than that, if this is acceptable, then if there's more than that, you have to act upon it. And if it's not, and it's neighbors complaining and it's not, the club's protected from it.
Look, I think from our perspective, I think that there may be some concerns you have about the process, but from our perspective, we went to John
Yeah,
and we got the.
I
go
hear
ahead.
you.
And we had a meeting last time and there was no specific direction for us to do a particular type of study. And so we on our own conducted an initial study. And, and look, we are continuing to work with people and hear the concerns. And, if the BZA has specific things they want us to do, we've never suggested we wouldn't do it. So, look, we're,
And I
we're
was
being nothing
misled
but.
by the chairman here, who made it clear that the club was not interested in having an acoustician.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's what I was told.
If this board wants to hire its own at the applicant's expense and have a sound study done, you can do that.
Yeah, that was a request I made as well. Not acknowledged.
What'd you say?
That was a
Sorry.
request I also made, and it
Right,
was
but
not
that-
acknowledged. We didn't pursue that in advance of this, and here we are.
How many months later? Oh, my goodness. This has been dragging on for so long. What with the lights, the whole craziness with the lights? I think the club has just missed its first.
Not just the club.
And I'm a club member. They've mismanaged the procedure.
I think that, not sure, obviously, you should express whatever you want to express, but I'm not sure that helps us at this moment. I think what is at this moment is we're requesting a variance, and we got to consider the factors, and you got to make a decision.
Yeah, I said that's where we
I mean,
are.
I realize there may be some unhappiness about the process for the village, but we did what we thought was the process, and we've tried to go through this process in a way that took people's views into account. And, that's why we're here now.
I mean, the process, we bring up the process now of the application in front of, that, how it went through John, but, that really is not what we're to look at, okay? What went on before is another story. Ours is just to look at the variance of the fence.
I can
and
see how you
everything.
want to winnow it down to just this.
What?
But there's times like these when the public can hear how the process is happening, whether it's efficient or not. And this is the only opportunity really to say this. For the record,
I guess that, at this point in time, do we open the meeting? Would be proper, so open the meeting to the
If the
public?
board has no more questions.
Do you have more questions for Jeff at this point?
oh, why wasn't there consideration to move this padel court to the golf house? Where the paddle courts some time ago, I believe, were being considered to be put near the tennis house, and they were moved there.
I think that the adult courts were proposed to be placed where they were placed now because it would maximize the benefit to the club and the community to have them there and be a part of the tennis program, the main tennis program at the club. I think if the village had not permitted them to be put there, we would have considered other locations. And I don't know whether that location would work. I don't know if there's space for it. I don't know whether that presents other issues. I just don't know. But I know that, as this was being planned, and due to the, importance of padel to the club and to the racket program, it made a lot of sense to have it be a part of what was happening right at the center of the tennis program. And that was the ideal location.
Right. Understood.
If there's no further questions for Jeff, I'd like to make a motion to open the meeting to the public.
So move.
All in favor? Aye. Public, who would like to speak?
First of all, I have a letter I would like to read. But first of all, I just wanted to say that the meeting on July 25th, which we were attended by Zoom, we were at our house in the Adirondacks. The padel court was already installed then. So they weren't debating whether to install. The bar never got to go through that process. The court was installed, and that was about the lighting, which they didn't vote on. So just to
Right,
set the
now,
record
the meeting
straight.
that we had, the first meeting that we had here was September 4th.
Right, that's the BZA, but I'm talking about the bar meeting that they mentioned that there was a bar meeting about the Padel
That you
court.
attended on Zoom.
Yes, we attended from the Adirondacks on Zoom, and the court was already installed then, so the bar never had a chance to weigh in on it. Just for the record, okay?
They just said it was horrible looking and
Right.
passed it on to,
Right,
zoning
but it was
board.
already installed.
yeah,
I'll
absolutely.
share. Here's a copy. Gee. Hello, my name is Dolores Marchand. Oh, shall I use the microphone? Okay. Hello, my name is Dolores Marchand. My husband Jeffrey and I have owned our house at 36 Westlake Road in Tuxedo Park for 33 years, since October of 1991, and have raised our 2 children here. The beauty, tranquility, and historic architecture are what brought us here. We have worked very hard and spent many hours to make our home and garden beautiful. I personally have volunteered countless hours as a member of the Tuxedo Park Garden Club, of which I am a former president. I have been horticulturist of the Garden Club for 30 years, helping to beautify our community. Our home is located diagonally across Westlake Road from the tennis house of the Tuxedo Club. And in 33 years, we had never once complained about the noise of the tennis courts. We have also been very tolerant of music from weddings, and from the last few years, summer Saturdays or Sundays, music at the pool. Things have changed though since last spring, when we noticed the Tuxedo Club removing many large trees and shrubs in anticipation of their installing padel courts, which we were never notified about and had never even heard of. Usually when something new is proposed in Tuxedo Park, neighbors are notified by mail in advance and get to weigh in on how it will affect them, be it an addition, a color change, landscaping, maybe a new sign, a mailbox, or something like that. We were never given the opportunity to research Padel and to learn about how it might affect our quality of life and our property value. Instead, the building inspector was told by the Tuxedo Club that it was like for like, just like a tennis court, and it was approved without notifying the nearby neighbors at all, or giving them a chance to research Padel's impact on their properties. He apparently did no research because a 30-second Google search turns up many articles describing the noise of Padel as similar to gunshots. It is much louder than tennis due to the impulsive sound produced when the balls hit the racket and the surrounding glass walls. The game is played by a rowdy bunch with frequent shouting and whooping, accompanied by dogs barking and kids screaming, all of which we cannot avoid hearing. It's like living next to a frat house. We hear them at all hours, from our home, from our porch and garden, from the woods behind our home, and even inside our home when the windows are open. There is no escape. Internet and AI searches regarding Padel frequently mention that having a Padel court nearby has a negative effect on property values, a decline of about 10 to 20% on average, which has been corroborated by local realtors. I will now play a short sound sample that our son Alden, a professional sound engineer, compiled from a few of the many iPhone photo videos that I have taken from our porch and garden. Note, these sound clips were not edited in any way, and there is ambient noise from birds and insects. The first 2 clips, which are from the Friday night Padel mixers, are especially noisy.
Example 1. Example 2. Example 3. Example 4. Example 5. Example 6. Example 7. Example 8.
These sounds go on for hours, from early morning until evening, especially on weekends and during the summer. I doubt that anyone sitting here tonight would care to hear this from your home for 10 to 12 hours per day, when you're enjoying a glass of wine on your porch, entertaining friends, relaxing in your garden, or working at your computer inside of your home as we do. The bar and the BZA have strict codes for a reason: to protect the beauty and historic uniqueness of Tuxedo Park and to protect the rights of property owners, including protecting their property values. The codes are not devised for the benefit of padel players. People can write hundreds of pro-padel letters, but unless those writers live nearby and are directly impacted by the noise and light pollution, those letters are frankly irrelevant. To us, the best solution would be to relocate the padel courts to the golf area, where they could play at all hours and make as much noise as they want without disturbing the peace of the neighbors, degrading property values, and ruining the beauty and uniqueness of Tuxedo Park. Thank you.
Can I speak?
Jim.
I just have 30 seconds. I've been here 14 years and I just wanted to, just agree with you on this because she said she didn't complain. I got to complain.
I can't hear you. Sorry.
Yeah, why don't you come up to
Could you
the,
introduce yourself?
I'm Tim Chisholm. I'm the rackets director. I've been here 14 years now. And I'm just, one comment I have to say is that the Marchands have complained every summer since I've been here about the noise coming from people grunting in the
No,
courts.
no,
That's a
that
lie.
is a total lie.
That's a lie.
You made that up. That's
That
That is a
disgusting.
lie.
That is a lie, for the record, a
That
total
is a
lie.
Please,
total
go ahead.
lie.
Total lie.
please,
No, that is a
No,
lie.
That is not true.
no back and forth.
You're
Or
thinking of
please, no
someone
back and
else
forth.
possibly,
I-
not us. We
Jay
never
Meyer,
did.
former chairman, tennis chairman at the Racket Club, or at the Tuxedo Club. He was the chairman when I first got here. He can corroborate that. So I just wanted to
That's
make
a
sure.
total lie.
That is
You were lying, you were
Absolute
lying
lie.
when you spoke there, so I just want, Jay Meyer can corroborate that.
No,
That
a
is
total
totally
lie.
untrue.
Total lie. Absolute lie.
Jeff, just out of curiosity, I know that you conducted your own sound study and do you have a copy of that and a copy of that to play or?
I didn't.
Okay.
I think we submitted it to you.
Submitted it, right.
But it wasn't nearly as loud as what the Marshalls
And there's a
showed.
difference between an acoustical study and just demonstrating what a neighbor's hearing. Now, how that factors into our opinion is still yet to be seen, but I mean, I get it and I understand this neighbor is outraged by it clearly and has made recordings. Whoever made the recordings around the tennis court that I've seen, that is not a professional acoustician doing their job and giving us parameters. And with the education and the ability to offer mitigation to help the community perhaps even successfully have the Bedell Court stay in place. I mean,
But I think, look, I think that, this is the guidance we need, right? And I think
this
that
is clearly the guidance that the club was asked if they wanted,
Well, I-
correct, Jake?
I'm
Yes
not-
or no?
I guess I'm not, I'm just trying to be collaborative here. I'm not trying to.
Now you are.
Well, again, I'm trying to be collaborative. I'm not trying to make accusations and you can,
I'm just making an
Whatever.
observation myself here.
I'm saying that, from my perspective, if the BZA believes that in order to approve the courts and to address the sound issues, we want a different kind of study, we would take your direction on that. I mean, I think that as we would all along. And so I'm not suggesting you should have suggested it before. I don't know what emails went back and forth between people, but I think that if in order to assess the 5 factors that you need to assess, you need to corroborate the sound studies that people have been supplying, and we should, we would take your direction on that front.
Well, I'm not the chair. I don't do that. I'm a board member that wishes it was done and it was not.
It was suggested, okay, and not followed up, okay. And they
I-
decided it was suggested that it might be helpful,
Uh-huh.
okay? But it chose to just do their own study in-house as opposed to that. Okay, simple as that.
So it was addressed.
Yes, my name is Jean Capello, and we live directly across from the tennis club at 23 Westlake Road in the old fish hatchery. And I have to say, we have not heard the Padel courts at all, not at all. And we today, as we arrived from New York, went to the parking lot, and it sounded in the parking lot with the windows down about like this sounded, And I have to say, now we have not been aware of the lights being on because we go to bed, at 10:30, 11 o'clock. And I don't even know if, the lights probably aren't on now at 8 o'clock or 8:30. But as people that live directly across the street, what we hear are cars, right? And we have Ring cameras that pick up, we have Ring cameras because of the bears, not because of the cars. Our Ring cameras pick up noise from the cars all the time. The Ring cameras have never picked, and they're set to pick up noise. They never have picked up noise from the Padel courts.
Hello, everyone. My name is Enrique Corridor. We live at 81 Laurelard with short lawn with the club. We also don't hear any sounds from the Padel. We actually enjoy having the Padel there. If anything, it's attracting young families to the park. And I think that's helping our real estate value. People are coming to Tuxedo just to play Padel. So we've been there since the very beginning. We haven't heard anything. We support those courts.
Yes, I'm Jeffrey Marchand. I live at 36 West Lake Road in Tuxedo Park. I'm appalled that, where is he?
There.
By the
I'm
way,
appalled that you would make that accusation. As a club member for many, many years, we have never complained in that way. I don't know where you get your information. But I am
That's
appalled
a
at that,
downright
to
lie,
accuse us of that.
That's
That's
a
a total
downright
and
lie.
outright lie.
but it's a lie.
Don't let them bait you into yelling.
again, don't let them do this again to you.
Chairman Lindsay, members of the Tuxedo Park Board of Zoning Appeals. I vigorously oppose the zoning variance application of the Tuxedo Club to allow a variance for the solid walls surrounding the Padel courts. A lot has been said already in the letter submitted by our attorney, Mr. Hens. So I will not rehash all of that. I just want to point out a few observations before I give my final remarks. Since the BZA is not addressing the issue of the exterior lights this evening, I will not read my observations about the inconsistency of the lighting tests that were performed. My only observation is that it reinforces my initial comments about the high intensity lighting at the bar meeting last July. It is not only prohibited by our zoning laws, but also represents a blight on our National Historic Register neighborhood. I'm referring not just to the lighting itself, but also to the structure of the installation. In reference to the very loud noise that is created by this game, I want to enter it onto the record that the fencing that helps project the noise is probably more of an issue with us than the lighting is. I am a symphony musician with over 45 years of professional experience, playing Lincoln Center, Carnegie Hall, and many other top concert venues throughout the world. So I think that qualifies me a little bit to comment on the acoustics of this game. Hitting the ball at high velocity off these tall, solid walls creates an amplifying effect that reaches our house with tremendous force. Add to that the constant noise of the players, their kids and dogs, and it is creating a condition that is affecting our health and well-being. My wife is an avid gardener with a beautiful garden, but she's not able to enjoy it and cannot escape from the hubbub that is constantly bombarding us. We came to Tuxedo Park 33 years ago to escape the racket of suburban New Jersey. But now those sounds have reached us again in Tuxedo Park and are invading our space again. It truly detracts from the beauty and serenity of this place and is a disturbance of the peace, which violates our rights to peace and quiet as property owners here. According to local realtors, we stand to suffer a 10 to 20% loss to our property because of these excessive noise issues. The Tuxedo Club has never stated publicly and conclusively how they intend to set the hours that padel can be played. If approved, it could go on ad infinitum as far as we know. The noise pollution was unending today, and I wrote this on June 30th. They were playing from 8 a.m. to past 8 p.m. and we had no relief from all of it. At the initial BZA meeting concerning the padel installation, a statement by the club was made about restoring the native plants and trees around the lawn tennis courts to provide even a minimal sound barrier. But this has never happened. The exception is that there was one little tree planted, which unfortunately died because of lack of water, and you can see it for yourself. As a single property owner, the Tuxedo Club should not be given preference over the rights of other single property owners. Adjacent to this installation, the majority of which oppose it, and you have that by the letters that were submitted. There was a proposal to build paddleball courts in the vacant field across from the De St. Paul house, now owned by Ted Wong, but it was knocked down in a lawsuit that was won by Mrs. De St. Paul and Jeffrey Isles some years ago. Additionally, exterior lighting was also proposed for the lawn tennis courts, but fortunately that was denied as well. It appears that the precedent may have already been set. Apparently, the club did not perform the mandated New York State environmental studies before constructing the padel courts. By the building inspector's own admission, the club also did not perform any experienced studies by experienced professionals regarding the effects of sound, the effects of the exterior lights, the effects on property values of surrounding neighbors, the effects on the environment, bird strikes, disturbance of endangered species, etc., before getting approval from the building inspector for construction on the basis of like use. Without going into gory detail, the game of padel is far from being like use compared to lawn tennis, both the game itself and the people that play it. A short internet search will reveal this, as well as the consequences of having a padel court in close proximity to residential areas. The many articles do not present a pretty picture. If you do not believe me, I encourage you to do your own search to corroborate. In conclusion, it is my opinion that the initial approval of this installation was flawed and that it is based on the disingenuous application of the premise of like use, which clearly it is not. I strongly believe that the whole approval process for the padel court should be reviewed top to bottom. I conclude that the building inspector made a flawed decision and an egregious error in approving the padel installation that will present a myriad of problems, present and future, for the surrounding property owners, and that as a result, the building permit as approved by him should be rescinded. We fully intend to vigorously defend our property rights.
Anyone else?
My name is Mark Hines. May I be heard?
Mark Hines, yes?
Yes, I'm the attorney for the Merchants.
All right, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I had several questions for the club representative.
This really is to
Is
be
that-
directed to the board.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then I can just comment upon it. In no particular order. I mean, the testimony was that this is the ideal location for the Padel Court, but otherwise, it doesn't seem like there's any necessity uh, to this. The use the area variance standard, which I agree is different than the use variance standard, doesn't promote the ideal location of the proposed variance, but rather quite the opposite, which is that there has to be some reasonable level of a showing that alternatives are not feasible. Related to the question of feasibility, you also haven't heard any suggestion that the club looked at or can eliminate the possibility of having excavated the area of the court to accomplish two things. One might possibly be sound mitigation, and number two, were the court to be located below grade, then they wouldn't need the fence variance. It seems like there was a significant investment here and a good deal of construction. I can't think of any reason why they shouldn't have to show that they couldn't have excavated in this area to lower the court to a point where the height of the fence above grade met at least the existing requirement. For the same reason that there isn't any hardship in the first place, the need for the variance seems totally, self-created. I don't think it's sufficient to say that we had a meeting with the building inspector and he gave us the green light. Based on my review of the code, the tennis court, meaning the existing lawn tennis court, is a structure, and its demolition would have required a demolition permit. We submitted a FOIL request for that. The response we got did not include any permit application for the demolition, and the same goes for the construction of the new court. It requires a building permit. If you look at the code, a new tennis court is similarly a structure and requires a permit. At least the FOIL response we received doesn't include any of that. No matter what they were told, those are objective requirements that are easily found from a review of the code. I found it on the Code 360 website, and certainly the club and their council could have done the same thing. Returning to the issue of feasibility, again, the ideal location is not the standard. They really ought to have to eliminate any other, or at least reasonable location. And it seems like they chose the one that was most favorable to themselves without presenting any alternatives or presenting this board with any reasons why some other location, including an indoor location, by the way, was not available to them.
These are all great facts, but they're really, what went on before, which is not why we're here today. Okay. We're here as a zoning. We're not here on what went on before.
Okay, I don't think that it certainly is relevant to the consideration of self-creation. That is that, I don't think that the board just looks at accepting the past as fait accompli and effectively ratify what was done because the proper applications weren't made or the concerns that are raised today weren't heard previously. I think actually quite the opposite. And what that would encourage generally, it can't be seen as a good thing. So, we don't think that the standards were met. We urge that this would create an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood. With respect to the comment about the noise code, I think that the notion of an undesirable change just requires a determination of whether this is undesirable from the point of the status quo. Whether it is or isn't a violation would be a separate issue. They can't violate the noise code anyway. So it seems to be that the standard is more flexible and perhaps lower, meaning that you just look at the status quo and consider it from there. Secondly, I've already addressed the issue of feasibility. I mean, they need to show that this can't be achieved by some other method or some other feasible method other than through the area variance. And I've suggested a couple of things already that militate against that, or at least they have not eliminated. With respect to whether it's would have an adverse effect or impact, I think at best you have some say it would and some say it wouldn't. And then with respect to self-creation, I think that in terms of either what happened before or just what exists now, this is clearly self-created. I mean, the fence height here is inherent to the game. This is not any different than any other. I quite agree that just based on my research that the fence height here is totally standard. Every padel court in the world that's like a legal compliant padel court requires this height of a fence. There's nothing unusual or some special considerations that are being sought here. They're just asking to put a regulation padel court in a zone that doesn't permit fences this high. So it's not like it comes as a surprise, and it might influence your decision about whether the proper disclosures were made previously. So for all those reasons, we urge you to deny the application. In the alternative, there ought to be a sound study. I mean, it looks to me like this involves a very significant investment. I don't think that the cost of a sound study would be disproportionate to the investment that the club has already made. Meanwhile, the use wouldn't be prevented by requiring that because it would be continuing. The lights will be off, so the status quo will stay. So based on everything that was set forth in my letter, we understand that there's a material difference between padel and lawn tennis, and also that there's at least one company I found provides sound mitigating materials for such courts, and we don't have any understanding about whether the materials that were selected were the most optimal for sound mitigation. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Anyone else? Comments from the board internally here. I mean, of the recent emails that we received, basically we received 9 new emails. Initially, I think there were 46 emails, 15 were opposed, and the balance were approving. We received 9 new letters. All of those new letters had no objection and support, and some of them were from people around the newsies were there, and people that live near the park. Okay.
It's the 46 all residents. You called out the number of non-resident letters.
There were some, most of them were park members.
So 46 included tainted batch.
Yeah,
basically.
but like I said, it
Far away.
yeah, some from far away. Okay, like I said, but I got to try to say, categorize all the 46. Obviously, it seems like, Charlotte, you certainly have a concern about a sound study. Obviously, the sound is an issue for Nancy, and in light of that, it may be best to formally ask the club to provide a sound study.
Well, I wanted to voice my opinion that the request for one, I thought was disrespected. And it's now, obviously, no one took this seriously. And now all of a sudden you are. I still think we should just go through the 5 factors and vote up or down whether this stays or not, because just because sound is part of the factor doesn't mean, and you've said it many times here, we're talking about a height variance and whether we think that would pass or fail the 5 factors. I've already said I would not vote for it if we did not have a sound study, and that wasn't taken seriously enough, and here we are, ready to make a vote. So let's make a vote.
No, I disagree.
Do you
Okay.
all of a sudden?
I disagree with you, okay? I think
I'd like
that,
to take a vote too.
what?
I'm really exhausted with this.
Mr. Chairman, it's up to you whether you take a vote or not.
Well, we're requesting you as loyal members.
I would like to get a sound study. And to me, by the way,
Of course.
there's a big difference between sound of people having fun, dogs barking, things like that, versus the sound inherent with Padel itself. I mean, there are tennis mixers that has nothing to do with Padel that produce the sound. So to me, the change in the status quo would be the sound of the Padel court, not whether people are gathered in that area having fun, because I think that's going to go on regardless of whether Padel is there or not. And maybe I couldn't hear it through the Zoom, but it seemed like the samples that were played, I certainly heard people talking and I certainly heard dogs barking. I didn't actually hear any Padel sounds, but maybe that's just because I'm on Zoom.
No, you could hear the ball hitting the glass, okay? So, I just think in light of, your concerns and the Marchand's concerns, I suggest that we move forward with requesting the club to do a formal sound study.
Does the board wish to hire their own consultant for that sound study? Rather than which the applicant would pay for?
Right.
But hiring your own consultant
Yeah, would be
might
better,
make
surely.
it more.
Less
Would
tainted.
I think that's probably a good idea, given
Yeah.
the importance of this issue.
You wouldn't like to vote, go through the 5?
Not if we don't have all the information. Obviously, you don't feel that you have the information necessary because we don't have a sound study. So
Who is that you're talking about? Because I just already said that I do feel we have enough information.
well, I'm requesting a sound study.
You need one?
What, sorry?
I'm
Cheryl?
requesting the
Jake
sound
needs a
study.
sound study.
Just drag
Jeff,
on
do you
the
have,
agony.
an objection to that?
And I guess the other question would be whether as part of that
And
sound
Campbell
study.
or Crutchwood. Go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
Campbell.
I'm sorry if I'm interrupting. Do you want me to continue?
Go.
In addition to that sound study, if there's any work that could be done by a professional sound person around sound mitigation, that would also be useful information.
I think you could ask your consultant to look into that issue as well.
Because it seems to me the big issue most people have is the sound. It's not the height of a fence per se.
Correct.
It's the sound.
Right.
And the lights are no longer an issue.
How do we know that this is going to be objective?
Because we're going to hire the.
It's because the village is going to hire the sound consultant. So that's why it'd be, that's
Why we
why
need
it'll
to
be.
do it.
And that automatically makes it an objective study.
It depends on the quality of the information they have. There's one person on the board that looks at sound studies quite a lot. Jake, maybe you do too. At least there's some background here that's usable to interpret a sound study.
And also, I remember seeing the fellow doing this tennis guy doing the sound study. I think there was like one person hitting a ball around. I seem to remember seeing that. I was wondering what they were doing. And when there's 4 people playing or both courts, it's a lot louder, and at certain times of day, and especially on the weekends, it's like 10 times louder than it might be, when one guy's just hitting a ball around. So, and we're hearing that constantly from 8 a.m. till 8 at night. So That it needs to be different times of study, not just one time with some guy hitting a little ball around. It needs
No,
to
it'll
when
be,
they're actually
it would be,
playing
it would
and
be
doing their
professionally
screaming
done.
every time they hit the ball, which they do. And I never see anyone quieting people down. We called the police once for the Padel. It was driving us crazy, maybe a month or so ago. And they came and it was quiet for about an hour, but they scream all day and I never hear them quiet down. You would think someone would come out of the tennis house and say, hey guys, why don't you keep it down? That might be bothering the neighbors, but no, they just go for hours.
Why don't we ask
We
Mr.
feel that
Chisholm
from our
to
point of view.
ask them to
It
keep it
absolutely
down?
drives us insane.
There's
The
a,
noise really, we can't be outside.
there's a letter from Chris Hansen that speaks to what you're talking about. I don't know if all of these are in the record or do they all,
Yes,
it would already
yeah.
in there?
Yeah, they're,
Because he talks about, please note that the variance for lights and fence height is not an exemption from the village's noise ordinances. The potential violation of the noise ordinance is not from the sport itself, he says, his opinion, but rather from the din and other noises generated from gatherings of people at evening or nighttime events. Such noise would not be fair to the immediate neighbors. While the single party that created noise might be tolerated by a neighbor anywhere in the village, events multiple times a year or every evening for that matter is a violation of one's right to quiet enjoyment, peace, and serenity. Is after all one of the most important qualities of Tuxedo Park. You know, former Board of Trustees, we all served with him. He has strong opinions. He lives very nearby. Is he 2 houses down from this? He's concerned about the same kind of noise you are.
Can I mention that my neighbors, I think, you're weekenders and not here a lot. Like we are here pretty much full time except.
Well,
when
we're
in the
often
office.
in the summer here weeks at a
Also,
time.
And
you're
you're-
down much lower. than
right,
we
my
are.
neighbor
We're at a higher
Claudia-
elevation and I think the
Right.
sound.
That makes a
But
difference,
we're-
the
They don't hear it
elevation.
the way
Yeah.
we do. You're below the road. We hear it, it comes, you would not believe, like all the way to the woods behind our house. It's like it's standing next to you, that bang, 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 constantly.
I mean, it sounds like,
sounds,
we need a study. It sounds like that's the direction we're getting. It sounds like there's different perceptions of the sound of the neighbors right around the club. And it sounds like we need to resolve this issue because it sounds like if the sound isn't really as serious of an issue as it seems, it sounds like it may resolve the issue. So it sounds like we need to get the study and we need some more data.
Well, also, I think we need to understand whether there's anything that can be done to reduce the actual sound of padel bat, the ball itself, right? Because I think the people noise is a different issue, and I think is not one that this board will address. But if there is things that could be done to reduce the padel sound to the neighbors, that should absolutely be explored.
well, I know there was suggestion about, tree planting and that has never been followed up on by the club.
Well, I think I'd like to hear from a professional sound person about whether something
Right.
could actually be.
There are companies that do mitigation, because I've researched it, because in England, France, and I believe the Netherlands, they've been outlawing them in residential areas for the same issues that we're having. And there are companies that do remediation, but it's really ugly, so, I mean, maybe the club would want to do that, but I don't think anyone would want to look at it, the neighbors or whoever, but.
It's really what, ugly, did you
Yeah,
say?
it's pretty ugly looking, like it's like making an enclosure.
Yeah, there's like a barrier
Yeah,
system.
Yeah,
right?
but that would
Yeah.
help. I'd go for that if we don't have to hear it. I'd go for that, or put it inside if they really have to.
Wouldn't it be easier to dismantle it and take it down to the golf course?
Yeah,
There's
that-
no zoning, there's plenty of room,
Play all night.
and they have all those nice fire pits
But-
where they can have parties.
But it functions with the tennis facility, really. It doesn't function on its own. But,
Only because they were sued.
Yeah.
yeah, that's a whole different environment. They asked Tim, that's a whole different environment. They just go down there to drink.
Well, the Padellers seem to enjoy
Well,
that. I mean, they're-
Seems that's what they do at the Padel court too.
What?
The Padel players wouldn't just go down there to drink, they'd go down there and play Adele, one thing I just don't quite understand in the terms of this procedure. If the procedures had been followed in the first place, all these complaints would have come up before ground was broken, before a permit was given, before anything was done, at which time the club could have made a decision to put it somewhere else because it's in the middle of a village. Many country clubs are out in the country. This one is not. It's in the middle of a village. And to kind of go through it the way they did, and then now come and say, okay, it's okay, we did it wrong, so we'll fix it. But it was a mistake in the first place. And
They
to
never
let
got
that
it.
just go
John,
and
they
say,
never got a building
that's
permit.
the way we should do business in this community. Let's get it done, and then we'll figure out a way to fix it.
Right, and without a permit
Disrespect to the
begin with,
process.
which
What?
seems to me
It's a
totally
disrespect to
wrong.
the process.
What'd you
It
say,
is.
Charlotte?
She
Charlotte
she said
Disrespecting the
Oh,
process.
yes, exactly.
You know, it's not the first time, it's not gonna be the last time. When is the nonsense about lying to a building inspector gonna stop? And what's the recourse? Mea culpa? It's just.
I would not put it that way. I think the club presented something to John and John felt it was like for like. So he issued the permit or.
He trusted what was told to him.
But the club knew it was not like for like.
Right.
That's the
That's for
point.
sure.
That's the point.
Absolutely.
Whether they're gonna say it here or not.
And the
That's
club-
absolutely.
The club also went to the Architectural Review Board, as I keep saying, and they said, this is
But that was,
really,
but that was
this is
also,
really ugly.
that was also after the fact.
After the.
Well, it was after
was
the
after the
fact, but
fact.
still, at least they said
Right.
it was ugly.
Right, but it was after the same thing. I was after the
Right.
fact.
So, Mr. Chairman, you are going to order a study, a noise study, and you'll give the person, the consultant, the parameters of that
Correct.
study. And then it'll be reviewed by the board.
Correct.
So reviewed by the board for comment on adding to the scope of the consultant's work? Or
Well,
can we spell this out while we're in the public of how this is gonna go down? Because the last round didn't flow very well.
My understanding is that the board is going to hire, well, the board is directing the village to hire a sound consultant.
Mhm.
And the board will determine the scope of the noise study. And Mr. Chairman, you can certainly ask for input from the board members as to what they think the scope should be. And you'll definitely want to agree on that before you give that to the sound consultant. Otherwise, you won't be happy with the
And
result.
also, are you saying we should add the mitigation?
I'm
to
saying
it.
if that's something that the board wants the consultant to look at, then of course you can ask the consultant for that as well.
Because who knows, it might be cheaper to move it to the golf course.
I'm hearing that the applicant has no problem with paying for that.
So we know what doing all the costs.
Well, we had a preliminary study that was $5,000
For which, sorry.
for a sound study.
I don't know the scope of that, but it would be at least that much and perhaps more. So, I mean, if the club isn't gonna, I think if the club.
Well, we could get the proposal, and present that proposal to the club and make sure that they're fine with it before they move forward with it.
Thank you.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you.
And if not fine with it, we come back and just vote without one.
Right. I guess we make a motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
My suggestion is that you keep the public hearing
Keep it open.
open until you get the sound study,
Okay.
so that the public will have an opportunity to see that document.
Well, I
and
would
comment.
close it and open it back up again.
Then you'll adjourn it.
What?
And the
Adjourn.
motion is to adjourn.
A
the public
motion
hearing.
to adjourn public meeting, okay.
So moved.
So, all in favor? Aye.
You need a second?
Second.
Oh, it was the
Second, sorry, second, okay. We have one other matter.
We have business to do.
We have approval of minutes to the meeting of
Let them
May
go.
5th. What?
We let them go.
May
Let
7th.
them go.
Adjourn. I wonder why the hellos don't hear this noise quite so much. Maybe because they're down in a hollow.
Well, I mean, there were, there was a lot of, if you read all the 9 that came in, there were members of people, Rifkin, Newsy, all right, they're all close people here. So, I mean, there's a
And
number of people, I mean,
people who
there's some people here that are very, very strong objections, and there's other people that live close that are not objecting. It's not black and white. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of May 5th.
May 7th.
What?
May 7th.
7th. It says May 5th.
Says May 5th.
Oh, does it? Well, it's supposed to, well, maybe it is. Oh, let me check. I think I had last written down May 7th.
We can look at our calendar and see if that's a
Yeah.
Wednesday.
I sent in my correction.
It's May 7th.
May 7th. I'd like to, we'll correct that. Like to make a motion to approve the minutes that were edited for May 7th.
So move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to close the meeting.
Yeah.
Approved?
Proof.